I'm going to start with an introduction that is more formal than usual because we have a live stream going on, so we have a potentially global audience from Annenberg World Headquarters. So I'll do a very brief introduction, well, not a brief formal introduction before moving into the substance and introducing the speakers. My name is Marwan Krady. I'm the director of the Center for Advanced Research in Global Communication here. And as I mentioned, this introduction is meant to cover more than usual because we have an audience who's not in the room. I'm very happy to introduce today's panel, Teaching and Learning Global Media Studies. I want to begin by thanking a few key people who helped make this possible. First is Michael Deli Carpini, Dean of the school, who unfortunately couldn't be with us, who has been very supportive of all things global, international, and comparative at the school. I also want to thank Marina Krikorian, who's the project coordinator at CARG, who made all this run smoothly. I want to thank our tech team, particularly Phil, for help with the live stream, and Julie Sloan for getting the word out. Today's event happens for several reasons. The official one is the publication of Global Media Studies, that gorgeous purple volume there on the table, by Polity Press, which Toby Miller and I co-authored. The more meaningful reasons, including hosting Toby here in Philadelphia, which doesn't happen often enough, but also taking advantage of the amazing concentration of expertise and talent in global media studies in Philadelphia. Notably at Temple. As you can tell, 3 of our panelists are faculty members at Temple University. That's where they do their teaching, learning, and writing in global media studies. I want to say welcome in order to Fab Darling Wolf, Nancy Morris, and Patrick Murphy. So this is more than simply a book launch. It's an opportunity for all of us to have a conversation sort of driven by a few people who've been thinking and chatting and arguing and writing about this for, let's say, 20 years for purposes of simplicity. Temple University's School of Media and Communication has contributed not only in substance with the panelists who are here, but also morally and financially to today's event. They are our official co-sponsor, which I hope this becomes a tradition to co-sponsor, collaborate between our 2 schools. The people at Temple, faculty, grad students, have been engaged in research on globalization, environmental issue, music and popular culture, TV drama, manga, citizen media activism, spanning countries all over the world, from Latin America to Europe, various places, Japan, Mexico, Chile, Puerto Rico. And so we have a lot to gain from really establishing some traffic. So I'm hoping this functions as an invitation to several people in the room to start making the trek between the 2 campuses back and forth. I think this would be absolutely fantastic. I also hope, as I mentioned, that there will be something more enduring between our 2 schools. So similarly, here at Annenberg, the study of global communication has grown significantly since Michael became dean. We do all kinds of work on global and comparative media, on digital networks, on activism, health communication in Botswana. China is of particular interest, various countries, the Arab states, Turkey in the Middle East, and as I mentioned, Europe. Now, CARG was created precisely to be sort of a hub where people can come and go, but also hopefully stay for a while and think and speak and argue and write about global communication. The center is designed to be an institute of advanced study that produces and promotes research on global communication and public life. So we're very interested in public life, bringing sort of scholarship to bear on important issues that are happening around us. And are there so many important issues now where people who do comparative work can contribute to the understanding of all kinds of ugly things happening all over the world. We also explore changing dynamics of what we like to call knowledge production and dissemination. So we're interested in things like electronic publication. We publish CARG papers. Hopefully soon we'll be able to publish books. Things like digital archives. And we focus on sort of fomenting dialogue between what is widely known or what was known as area studies, people who know specific regions of the world, their languages, their histories, their politics, and the more sort of theoretically oriented disciplines. Now, Global Media Studies, the book, started in the fertile mind of Toby Miller. So Toby recruited me along other contributors who ended up not being part of the book to write the kind of book that many of us wished we had for our teaching, but also for our thinking, our research work. So I first met Toby in person, and I remember this as I decided to write an introduction. So MIT used to have an MIT conference, which is Media in Transition Conference. And I think it was 2002, where, of course, I knew Toby's work, but I had never met him personally. And I presented my paper at a panel at MIT, and then I see Toby walking towards me with someone else, and he said to that someone else, who's one of his co-author on Global Hollywood, which is sort of one of the field's blockbusters, but also the most data mined book of all times, perhaps, in the field. And Toby said, Marwan just published a review of our book. And this is when I was supposed to say something, and I didn't know what to say. So Toby was kind enough to say, and it was a nice review. I got stressed for 30 seconds there. So that's and incidentally, the review was called Ferment in Global Media Studies. I also remember a moment where Patrick and I, in a hotel room in San Diego, when ICA was there in 2000, we had 20 chapters of an edited volume we wanted to publish, printed out, splashed on 2 hotel beds, and we're trying to figure out how to think of a cohesive title. And the thing that we came up with was Global Media Studies, an ethnographic approach. That was in 2002. So let's get back to the book. So, you know, when Toby initially started talking to me about this, and he really wrote the first blueprint for the book. This was the idea. The idea was to write a book that, one, was not simply a catalog of media systems around the world, that sort of compared and evaluated media systems and somehow came with the West as sort of the normative center against which everything was to be evaluated. It was also the idea that we should write a volume that drew from sources that originated outside of the sort of usual suspect places for the production of scholarship, and also that used languages other than English. A book that was critical in approach, that was unabashedly internationalist in imagination, and that had sort of a playful mode of address, which is one of the nice things you learn working with Toby. But finally, a book that blended theory and methodology and context to explain global media through sort of various genealogy. You know, we have a chapter on global studies, a chapter on how media studies developed, schools of thought like political economy, institutions all the way from Hollywood to the Pentagon, gadgetry like mobile phones, genres, whether reality TV, sports, or games, and audiences. So I should also mention that the proposal, the plan of action for the book, was formalized at a conference in 2006 where both Annenberg organized, where we sort of sat and so we had the contract and sort of we hashed out a plan of action. And as usual, things take much longer when busy people try to do work together. And so the book comes out 10 years later. Now, the issues that we're discussing today have preoccupied many of us for many years. We've had conversations. Several of us have known each other for a very long time. Several of us went to grad school together. We huddled together at conferences to argue and give each other a hard time about things or give other people a hard time. And so I'm very happy that this is a moment of a conversation that started long before and I hope would grow and would continue. Before I introduce the panel, let me just say, for propaganda purposes, our hashtag is SCARC17. I hope you start the storm. So we'll go in the order in which panelists are listed. First, Toby will give us sort of the main presentation about the book itself. You have detailed biographies on the program in front of you and online, but let me say a few things. Toby Miller is a British-Australian-US interdisciplinary social scientist. He has written or edited dozens of books, more than 100 essays. He's a frequent media commentator all over the world. He has held faculty position also all over the world, in the UK, in Australia, in the United States, visiting professorships, distinguished chairs, has taught all over and lectured, and of course, he's the co-author the first author of global media studies. Fabienne Darling-Wolf, who's an associate professor and director of the Media and Communication Doctoral Program at Temple, has published Imagining the Global, Transnational Media and Popular Culture Beyond East and West, which focuses on sort of tripartite cultural flows between Japan, the US, and France. The book won the International Communications Association's Outstanding Book Award last year in 2006. She is now editing the Handbook of Japanese Media. Chris Ali is an assistant professor in media studies at the University of Virginia. He's also a Clark Fellow. He's also an alum of the school and a fellow at the Tow Center for Digital Journalism at Columbia. His book, Media Localism, The Policies of Place, just came out from the University of Illinois Press. Nancy Morris, who's also an alum of the school, who's a professor at Temple University in media studies and production. She has taught also all over the world. She was at the University of Stirling in Scotland. She held the UNESCO Communication Chair at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and more recently, a Fulbright in Chile. She's published widely in a variety of journals and has a fantastic book about media and culture in Puerto Rico. Patrick Murphy is the Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies at Temple University, School of Media and Communication. He's the author of The Media Commons, Globalization and Environmental Discourses, which is coming out very shortly from the University of Illinois Press. He co-edited Negotiating Democracy, Media Transformation in Emerging Democracies, and Global Media Studies, the book that I mentioned earlier. He has written widely and translated into English many articles by Latin American communication scholars. So I've said enough. Please welcome this distinguished group of people. Please join the conversations. Thank you.